Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and today we are going to learn about the Godot game development engine. So if you followed the instructions in the course, you should have already downloaded Godot from their website or from the Canvas link. And once you download Godot, there's actually no need to install. You just double click this icon here, this little robot, and it will open up your project manager screen, which is what I have here. Now, you may see a different screen, one that looks like there's going to be basically blank, and then it's going to say, please confirm you currently don't have any projects. Would you like to explore official example projects in the asset library? If you see that panel, just go ahead and click cancel to get rid of that menu, and then we can create our own project by clicking new project over here on the right side. Now inside of our new project panel, there are a couple things that we need to do. First, we're going to make a game called Pong. That's the game we're going to make for the next couple of weeks. So we can just go ahead and call it Pong. Now, I already have a Pong game, so I'm going to call mine Pong 2. All right. Now, next, we need to check our project path right here. This is going to be where our project files are going to be stored. This is really important for us to pay attention to where this is going to go because, well, we need to find our project files later. So we want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? We want to be a little bit selective with where we put this project file. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Browse, and we're going to find the project file we want to put it in. I'm just going to put mine on my desktop here. So in order to get to my desktop, I need to click this up arrow to go up one in the directory. Right now I'm in Documents folder right here. And I know that my desktop is actually in the OneDrive folder. Your file directory may be different from mine. As a matter of fact, it's going to be different from mine. I have mine set up a bit differently. But I'm going to go up one from Documents by clicking this arrow. And now I'm going to choose Desktop. And now it's going to pull up all of the folders on my desktop. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just choose Select Current Folder. That's going to basically make my file path C:/users/David/OneDrive/desktop. So that is where I want mine to go. Now we still have an error here. It says please choose an empty folder. So what we need to do is we actually need to click Create Folder. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a new folder on my desktop called Pong 2. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, now notice that I now have a Pong 2 folder that is empty, and this green check mark is now there, which basically says, hey, okay, now we found an empty folder where we can put all of your game files. Perfect. Now, there's only one thing that we have left to do. We have to choose our renderer. The renderer is essentially the engine that's going to render our images on our screen. Now, the renderer we want to choose isn't necessarily that important of a choice at this point, but if we ever want to publish our games onto the internet, then we're going to want to use OpenGL ES2. All right, OpenGL ES2. And you can change that after you've already created your project if you mess up and make the mistake of not clicking that. But let's go ahead and click it now so that we're good to go. Once we're sure that our project is set up properly, we can go ahead and click Create and Edit. All right, now the first thing I want to do is I want to take a tour of the editor interface. We want to take a look at all the panels and scenes and or menus and things that are here. So the interface is divided into several sections. Each of these sections has its own purpose. Let's take a look at the top menu bar here, this top part here. Now, this contains options for saving our projects, creating new projects, as well as tools for debugging, publishing our games, all of the things that we want to do, right? So if we go to the scene menu, in this menu, we can actually save our scenes. And the option that we're going to use the most is either save scene as or save all scenes. We're going to use those options a lot. We can also go to project here and take a look at some options about our project, specifically project settings, which has a ton of information in it, which you can explore on your own. We're not going to get into that too much, but we will look at some tabs, specifically the input map tab. That's something we're going to spend some time in, and maybe the general tab as well. We have debug options where you can turn on and off certain things about debugging. We're just going to leave all of these options alone. We can go to editor and change some editor settings if we'd like. This will do things like change the scale of certain objects in your editor. You can make your inspector look a bit differently. There are all kinds of things we can do here. We're not going to play around too much in this menu, so we're just going to leave that alone for now. And then we have help. There's online documentation and some other things that we can look at here. We can actually search the help for something. This is going to be more when you're working independently. If you're following along with my videos, I will show you every single thing you need to do step by step. Right here, we have our view selector. We can choose to view either 2D, 3D, the script view, or we can go to the asset library. And this will allow us to look for assets that other people have created and given us access to. We're not going to play around with the asset library until much, much later in the class. Mainly the two menu or the two view options we're going to use are 2D and script. Those are the two that we're going to use most often in this class. And then over here we have our play options. You can hit the play button to play your scene. What that's going to do, though, it's going to ask you to set a main scene for your project. We actually don't have any scenes yet, so I'm just going to click the X there. If you have a main scene defined, but you want to play test a different scene, for example, if you have your level 1 scene designated as your main scene, but you're testing level 3, then you can click play scene right here, which will play the current scene you have open. All right. And then we also have play custom scene, which will allow you to choose which scene you want to open. Over here, we have our renderer choice. So if you forgot to choose the GLES2, then you can change it here with this drop-down menu. Perfect. All right, let's take a look over at the scene menu here, this scene menu here. Excuse me. On the left side of the screen, you're going to see the scene menu. And this panel holds all of the nodes that are going to exist within your game scene. Right now, it doesn't have any nodes in it. It just has create root node, which it's asking us to create a node. So we can actually, let's create one real quick. Let's just click on 2D scene to create a new 2D scene node. Now, notice a couple of things have changed so far. Right now, our scene menu has changed so that it says node 2D instead of all those other options. Our game scene or our editor scene here in the middle has changed a bit. And then our inspector over here, which we'll talk about, has changed as well. So this is where all your nodes are going to be stored, where you're, that make up your game. All right, let's take a look down here in File System. File System is directly below the Scene panel, and File System is where all of your assets are going to be stored. Right now, the only asset we have is icon.png. It's just a picture of the Godot robot, and so that's the only asset we have. But later on, with other game projects, we're going to be adding a ton of assets to these games. Let's take a look at the workspace. This is the workspace here in the middle. Now, the workspace is where you're going to see what your game looks like. You're going to build your game using the game objects and nodes that you're creating. You can zoom in and out on this menu by scrolling the mouse wheel. Okay. And you can pan by right-clicking, holding it, and then moving your mouse around. Those are our main options, or our main navigation options for 2D. Practice that just a little bit, zoom in and out, and click the right mouse wheel, or click the right mouse button, and then pan around. Okay. Over here we have some options. So up at the very top we have unsaved with an asterisk here. That is basically the title of this scene that's open. We haven't saved this yet, so it's going to remain unsaved. We can create a new view here, a new scene essentially, by clicking this plus. Down here we have some options for how to navigate this workspace. We have our select mode, which is what we're mostly going to be using. We have our move mode, which will allow us to move objects in the scene. We can also do that with select mode as well. We have rotate mode, which will allow us to rotate objects. And we have scale mode, which will allow us to grow objects, grow or shrink objects in our scene. We can also use this I guess we'll call it the show tool. That tool will allow you to click on a space in your game, and it will show you all of the objects in that same position. We have our pan mode, which is the same as holding the right mouse button. We have a ruler mode, which will allow you to create a measurement and actually determine some angles and some other properties, which is actually pretty nice. You can measure out how far something is. For example, if we wanted to find out how big our screen was, we can go to our origin point here, and we can stretch it all the way to the other corner. And we can see that our screen is roughly about 600 pixels tall by about 1022, 23, 24 pixels. And we can actually see the hypotenuse as well, how long it is diagonally. Perfect. We can use smart snapping options, which we're not going to play with too much until we get into tiles. We have skeleton options, which we're not going to play around with at all. That is mainly for 3D. And then we have view, where we can change some options about how we view the objects in our scene. Okay, perfect. Now let's look at the inspector. I'm going to make sure I have my node 2D selected, so we have some options here. The important thing to know about the inspector is that all of these options are context sensitive, meaning if I have a different node selected over here, then we're going to see different options. Now, there are some options that you're going to see that are pretty common, things like transform, which give us the position, the rotation, and the scale of a game object. Things like visibility. Do we want that object to be visible or not? Do we want to change the color of that object? Things like that. So these options are going to change based on the node we have selected. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete the node 2D, this node. We can right-click nodes to give us more options, like attaching scripts to them, merging them, saving this branch, or save branch as a scene by itself, all kinds of things. But what we want to do is actually delete this node. We're going to delete that, and it's going to revert back to the create root node option. This is now basically a blank scene. We can start class. The next video, we're going to actually take this blank project and we're going to start building onto it by creating some custom nodes and making something that actually works. Now what we can do is, let's go ahead and, let's see, do we want to save this? Let's just save all scenes and see what happens. And nothing's going to happen. We can save this scene, but I have a feeling we're going to do that next time, so we don't have to really worry about that right now. Yeah, we'll just leave that alone for now. Okay, in the next video, we're going to create a game object, and we're actually going to get it moving by using some computer programming. So it's going to be a fun project, and I'm looking forward to working on it with you. All right, thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you next time.